Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you're all fine. Today we will discuss discourse analysis. The focus of the lecture is to understand what is discourse and what is discourse analysis. So let's begin. First of all, we have to understand what are the main objectives of this session. The first objective is to understand the origin, meaning, and concept of discourse and discourse analysis. So we will know in this lecture that what is discourse, the concept of discourse, and the concept of discourse analysis. Because discourse has a very loose definition. So we cannot restrict discourse to only one definition. So we will provide several definitions to discourse, and we will understand then what is discourse analysis and why do we do discourse analysis and why there is need of discourse analysis. The second objective of this session is to define discourse and its different aspects. So we will define discourse from different aspects, from different angles, and from different authors' point of views. And the third objective of the session is to know about different approaches to discourse analysis, because we don't have a single approach to discourse analysis. When you are conducting a discourse analysis in your research and your BS research, in your MS research or PhD research, so we don't have a single approach to discourse analysis. We have multiple approaches to discourse analysis. So we will try that at least to know a few approaches to discourse analysis in this lecture. So let's begin. Origin of discourse. The word discourse originally comes from the Italian word discursus, which denotes conversation or speech. So it means that discourse or discourse analysis is primarily speech. But we cannot restrict discourse analysis only to speech or spoken language. When we say discourse or discourse analysis, so we mean both written and spoken language. But primarily that discourse mean conversation or speech. Some more origins of discourse analysis. The scholars of Greece and Rome who were studying language were well aware of the different approaches to language. For example, they knew that one of the approach to language is grammar, while another one is rhetoric. Now the first one is concerned with the rules of language. So this is the first one. Grammar is concerned with the rules of language. It means that when we talk about this approach to language, grammar, so the focus of this aspect of language is to know about the rules of language. For example, that how to construct a good grammatical sentence. And another word, that how to combine different words to form a sentence, a phrase, or a clause. So it means that when you want to study the rules of a language, so you are concerned with this approach to language that is called grammar. While the second one deals with how to do things with words to achieve to achieve effects and to communicate effectively with people in a particular context and situation. The second approach to language that is rhetoric, and rhetoric is concerned with how to do things with words. That is like discourse. So we are doing different things with words. For example, we convince people, we inspire people, we motivate people, we defeat people, we win people, and we achieve certain goals through using language. So to do things with words, to achieve effects and to communicate effectively. So first, the first purpose of using language is to do things and to achieve effects. And the second one is to communicate effectively with people in a particular context and situation. So these were the two purposes of rhetoric, or the two purposes of discourse. The first one, to achieve certain goals or effects through using language, and the second one is to communicate effectively with people in a particular context and situation. So this is related to rhetoric, while the first one, to study the rules of a language, is related to grammar. Now, discourse, we will define discourse and different definition to discourse. A term with several related and often quite loose meaning, because we don't have restricted definition to discourse. First, perhaps in its most general usage, it can refer to any form of language in use. So when we say discourse, so we mean that any form of language that is in use. That is the first definition of discourse. So next time when someone asks you that how can you define discourse, you will say language in use. That is said by Brown and Yull, 1983. That is reference. Or naturally occurring language. When a language occurs naturally, it means that when you speak or when you converse with someone, it's also discourse, right? Or in other words, when you deliver a speech, it's also discourse. So any language that occurs naturally is a discourse. That is one. And second, that language in use, that is another one. So language in use, that is one definition. Or in simple words, they say that discourse is when language is used naturally, or naturally occurring language is also called discourse. Now, another meaning, conceive discourse as language above the sentence or above the clause. This is another definition to discourse said by Stubbs. So we will discuss this, that discourse means language above the sentence or clause in coming slides in detail. Here we will know that language above the sentence or above the clause means that it is a larger pattern than a sentence, right? So like the smallest unit, then we have morpheme. After morpheme, we have word, and after word, we have a phrase. After phrase, we have a clause. After clause, we have a sentence, and after sentence, we have discourse. So discourse, that is actually above the sentence or above the clause. It is another definition to discourse. Discourse can also be used to refer to particular context of language use. When a language is used in a particular context, we can also call it discourse, and in this sense it becomes similar to the concept like genre or text type, because genre and text type are also used in a particular context or situation like language in use. For example, we conceptualize political discourse. It is used in a political context. So a particular context is required for a particular for political discourse. So the sort of language used in a particular context, or media discourse. So media discourse also requires a particular context, right? Similarly, we have like showbiz discourse. So showbiz discourse also require a particular context. So in this sense, we can define discourse, that language in use, and in this sense, it becomes similar to the concept like genre or text type. For example, we can conceptualize political discourse, media discourse, religious discourse, and showbiz discourse, and sports discourse. So any language that used in a particular context is also called discourse. Now, in addition, some writers have conceived of discourse as related to particular topics. So some of the writers are there who conceive discourse as related to particular topics. So we have several topics, and when you want to talk or when you want to discuss a topic, so it's also discourse, as we earlier mentioned, like a political discourse, like a religious discourse, like a sports discourse, like an educational discourse, like an environmental discourse, right? Like a geographical discourse, like a psychological discourse. So some of the writers are there who conceive discourse as related to particular topics, such as an environmental discourse or colonial discourse, which may occur in many different genres. Now, related to this, Michel Foucault defines discourse more ideologically as practice which systematically form the object of which they speak. So he means that discourse is ideologically formed structures, or discourse, it is formed ideologically. So there are different ideologies which are promoted through discourse. That is what he means by Foucault. Now here we have Guy Cook on discourse, the most prominent figure in discourse analysis. How he defines discourse, he wrote a book that is titled as Discourse, and it is Oxford publication. So in his book Discourse, he defines what is discourse. He says that a unit of language larger than a sentence is called discourse. So then he means that there are smaller unit in language too. So smaller than discourse is sentence, and smaller than sentence is clause, and smaller than clause is a phrase, and smaller than phrase is a word, and then smaller than a word is morpheme. So we cannot further divide morpheme into smaller unit. So it is discourse then is a larger unit of language, and it is larger than a sentence. Further, he said that what is discourse? A stretch of language written or spoken. So we cannot restrict discourse only to spoken language. It is also written. Primarily, discourse is spoken, and later on also it became like written one, because most of the time we have scripts, we have books, we have interviews. Now the scripts of interviews, we have novels, and we have poems, and we have like other general books. So all these books are written. So then we can do discourse analysis of all those written scripts. So discourse it can be written or it can be spoken. He says that a stretch of language written or spoken larger than a sentence is called discourse. Similar definition to the first one. Now, according to Cook, he said that novels as well as short conversation might be equally called discourse. So discourse is not only short conversation then. Discourse can be long conversation, and discourse can be the whole novel too. Right? So he means that discourse, there is no length of discourse, that what should be the length or what should be the size of discourse. We can't say restrictly that 3 or 4 sentences are discourse, or 10 sentences are discourse. A discourse can be 2 sentences, a discourse can be 10 sentences, a discourse can be 50 sentences, a discourse can be 100 sentences, and a discourse can be then 1,000 sentences. So, language in use for communication. Further, he says in his book Discourse, he says, what is discourse? When language is in use for communication. So two things are there. One is that language in use for communication. So of course, when language is in use, so the purpose of language becomes communication. So these two things are, you can say, interrelated, because when we use language, the purpose is for communication. So he says language in use for communication. Now, discourse analysis, then what is discourse analysis? Search for what gives discourse coherence. So we will discuss discourse analysis in coming slides. Here we have some more definitions to discourse. Now, study of text linguistic unit larger than a sentence. It means that in discourse we do what? We study text. And the text, that is linguistic units larger than a sentence. So in discourse we don't have only then one sentence. We have several sentences, and then several sentences together, that is called text. So text is actually linguistics unit. So when we study text as a linguistic unit that is larger than a single sentence, so we call it discourse. Now, text is more than a sequence of sentences. I told you that text is not only a single sentence, but text is a sequence of sentences to be considered one by one. So how can we consider this text one by one as a sequence? We will discuss this grammar in discourse and grammar beyond discourse. Rather, sentences of a text are elements whose significance resides in the contribution they make to the development of a larger whole. So what does it mean? That rather sentences of discourse are elements whose significance resides. So these sentences which resides in a text, the significance of them reside in the contribution they make to the development of a large whole, because a text consists of several sentences. Now these sentences must be well knitted with each other to make a large whole. If these sentences, which are called elements of the text, if they are not well knitted with each other, there is no coherence, so then it cannot give us a large whole. And when a text or when these sentences do not give us a large whole, so then we cannot call it discourse. It becomes discourse only when these sentences are well connected. And one sentence, another sentence which come after another one, so it must be connected with the previous one and make a whole, like a chain we have. If you want to have a chain, you need links for a chain, and these links make chain, because we cannot call these links chain until and unless these links are not properly knitted or not properly connected. These links cannot make a chain. The same is true also of sentences. If these sentences are not well knitted or not well connected, we cannot, or these sentences then cannot make a discourse. A discourse can only be formed, it can only be made if these sentences are well connected. Similarly, that a chain can only be made if the links are well knitted or well connected. Now, another definition to discourse, that is according to Oxford Advanced Learner Dictionary, a long and a serious treatment or discussion of a subject in a speech or writing. So, what is discourse? It is a long and serious treatment or discussion of a subject in writing or speech. So again, Oxford Advanced Learner Dictionary also calls discourse that it can be a speech or it can be writing. So both are here. Again, Oxford Advanced Learner Dictionary says that the use of language in speech and writing in order to produce meanings, language that is studies usually in order to see how different parts of a text are connected. So previously I told you here in this definition that we see that how a text gives us meaning, and a text can give us meaning only if the sentences are well connected. Then let me zoom it. In its simplest form, discourse is verbal or written. Discourse can be verbal or it can be written communication between people that goes beyond a single sentence. Excuse me. Now, it can be written or it can be spoken for communication between people that goes beyond a single sentence. So then discourse is not a single sentence. Importantly, discourse is more than just language. It's not only language, more than a language. The term language can include all form of linguistic and symbolic unit, even things such as road science. And language studies can focus on the individual meaning of words. Discourse goes beyond this and looks at the overall meaning conveyed by language in context. So it's not only language, we also see particular context, that who are interlocutors, where they are, what are they doing with their facial expressions, and what gestures they are using, what are their postures, and what are they doing with their bodies, and context. So relationship, social context, cultural context, so these all are included in discourse. Then so discourse is not only language, that you are using language or you are using linguistic unit, because by language we only mean linguistic units, you are using language, but discourse is beyond language. I told that context is there, and then in context we have lot of things, right? In context we have lot of things, like what is the relationship between you and the person you are communicating, and in which relationship you are, and like what is the mood, and how are the facial expression, what is paralinguistic features. So these all are counted in discourse. So context here refer to the social, cultural, political and historical background of the discourse, and it is important to take this into account to understand underlying meaning expressed through language. So it's not only that language which give us meaning, but there are also several other things like the context. We look at the context, that in which context the people are, or in which context something is uttered. So these all things are counted for discourse. Only language is not enough then. Now, till now, we discuss what is discourse, and we define discourse from different aspects. Now, we have discourse analysis. What is discourse analysis? Discourse analysis is the study of language at use in the world. So, because language it is used in the world, language is used in a context. Without a context, we cannot use a language. So, not just to say things, but also to do things. So, with the help of language, we not just only say things, but we also do things, because we use language to do things. Now, people use language for a lot of different things. They use it to communicate, to cooperate, and to help others. So, language is used. The primarily purpose of using language is to communicate. But it is not only one purpose, or not only one primarily purpose of language to communicate, but language has a lot of purposes without communication. For example, to cooperate, to help other, they use it to build things. We not only use language only to communicate, to cooperate, but language is also used to build things like marriages, because marriages are performed through language and repetition and institution. You see that language we use to heal us, to wound us, and to make us happy, to make us sad. Language is used to begin wars, and language is used to stop wars, to bring peace, right? Language is used to start fight between people, and it is language that it is used to create peace among people, right? So language is used to annoy people, language is used to convince people, language is used to motivate people, language is used to win the heart of people, language is used to lose people, right? So language has the purpose of language, or language has multiple purposes, right? Not only for communication, for to cooperate or to help other, but language is used also like to break relationship, or to break marriages, like divorce. We use just three words, okay? Divorce, divorce, and divorce, and then we are separate. That's language. And we also use language to build things like marriages, because marriages are also built through language. During like wedlock, we say that kabul hai, kabul hai, kabul hai. So these are the three words that that these are the three words through which marriages are built. So simply I mean that language has a lot of or multiple purposes in our daily lives. So they also use it to lie, because we use language to lie and to take advantage and advance themselves, and to harm people and to destroy things like marriages, reputations, and institution. So if on the one hand language is used to build marriages, so on the other hand language is used to destroy marriages, right? If on the one hand language is used to make reputation, on the other hand language is used to destroy reputation. If on the one hand language is used to build institution, on the other hand language is used to destroy institutions. If on the one hand language is used to tell truth, on the other hand language is used to lie. So in simple words, that language it does a lot of things for us, right? So language is used to do things also. Now we extend the slide of discourse analysis. Now STUDS refers to it as an attempt to study the organization of language above the sentence or above the clause, and therefore to study large linguistic units such as conversational exchange or written text, while some discourse analysts focus on how meanings and structures or signals in text, others especially since in early 1990s have used discourse analysis more critically to examine issues relating to power, inequality, and ideology. So in 1990s there were some like authors or some like scholars who wrote about that discourse is used also for power and for ideology in text, to build power and to create ideologies in text and speech. And this is more specifically referred to critical discourse analysis then. So it will be one of the topic in future lectures, critical discourse analysis. So all forms of discourse analysis, however, have tended to stress the importance of examining naturally occurring texts. Even if you're looking for power, if you're looking for ideology, if you're looking for inequality in discourse, but still the focus is what? Examining naturally occurring text. So then text is referred both to written as well as to verbal. So text doesn't only mean to like written text, but text in discourse also mean like a verbal one. So simply we can sum up that even if you are looking for ideology, power, inequality, racism, or like gender discrimination in discourse, but the focus is that how language is used naturally or naturally occurring text or language. We have different approaches to discourse analysis. Now, what are they? There are many different approaches to discourse analysis. Some of these are part of discipline of linguistics, and these approaches to discourse analysis are tied closely to the study of grammar. So some approaches are related to linguistics, and these approaches to discourse analysis are tied closely to the study of grammar. Some approaches to discourse analysis are not as closely tied to grammatical detail of language, but concentrate on ideas, issues, and themes as they are expressed in talk and writing. So some of the approaches are tied or closely tied to the study of grammar, and that is related to discipline of linguistic, while other approaches of discourse analysis not as closely tied to grammatical detail of language but concerned as ideas, issues, and themes as they are expressed in talk and writing. So, what are those ideas, issues, and themes? For example, we look for ideologies, we look for power relation, we look for racism, we look for gender discrimination, we look for the issues of immigration, we look for social issues, we look for cultural issues, we look for some economical issues. So these all issues are coded in text and talk, might be in spoken language or might be in written language. So then it becomes the focus of analysis for experts or for researcher. So then we have two main approaches to discourse analysis. One is that is closely related to grammar on or it is related to the discipline of linguistics, while other one that is related to issues and related to ideas and related to central themes. Then related to approaches to discourse analysis, we continue. Now, Professor Wodak, she said that discourse analysis provides a general framework to problem-oriented social research. As I told you that this is not directly related to grammar, the study of grammar now. That is to study ideas and to study issues and themes. So basically, discourse analysis is used to conduct research on the use of language in context in a wide variety of social problems such as issues in society that affect individual negatively. I told you that what are those issues, like the issue can be of immigration, the issue can be of racism, the issue can be of gender discrimination, the issue can be of religious issues, economic issues, social issues, cultural issues. So these all are different issues which are coded and encoded in discourse. Now, for example, the discourse analysis could be used to assess how language is used to express different viewpoint on financial inequality and would look at how the topic should or shouldn't be addressed or resolved and whether this so-called inequality is perceived as such by participants or not. We continue. What makes discourse analysis unique is that it posits that social reality is socially constructed. So, social reality is socially constructed because these all social realities are not actually based on facts, but they are socially constructed, or that our experience of the world is understood from a subjective standpoint. Discourse analysis goes beyond the literal meaning of the words and languages. So we do not look at only the words and the language that is used, but we go beyond this, and that is to look that what is conveyed, what is hidden in this discourse. For example, people in countries that make use a lot of censorship will likely have their knowledge and thus views limited by this and will thus have a different subjective reality to those within countries with more laws on censorship. So it means that discourse is not only used to locate for the language and for the words, but we go beyond the literal meaning of words and language, and that is to discover and to dig out that what kind of problems and issues are coded in this language. So this is the focus for discourse analyst. So this was all about discourse, definition to discourse, different approaches to discourse analysis, and what is discourse analysis. And we discuss in detail the different viewpoint of different authors on discourse and discourse analysis. So we will discuss more lectures on discourse and discourse analysis in coming lectures. Thank you so much.